The year was 2010, and during that year's E3 discussion, Nintendo talked about the revolution of the Nintendo 64 and how it introduced the world to some of the greatest 3D games of all time. The Nintendo DS was also discussed, Nintendo's flagship handheld that was beginning to show its age even after the release of new models like the Nintendo DSi. Immediately after the discussion, the at the time Nintendo of America CEO, Reggie Fils-Aimé, would unveil one of Nintendo's most creative and impactful pieces of hardware of all time. Hello people, I'm Tommy, and today we're going to be taking a look at the greatest console of all time, and its first year on the market. We're going to be looking at the good, the bad, and the Pilotwings resort of the console that gave every 6-year-old permanent vision damage. The Nintendo 3DS is my favorite piece of video game anything. A console with such a diverse, fun, and what we'll be looking at today, gimmicky library. After being hyped up during 2010, the 3DS would be released February 26th, 2011 in Japan, March 25th, 2011 in Europe, and 2 days later on March 27th in North America. And so would truly begin the legacy of the greatest console ever made. Despite the incredible legacy I believe the 3DS has, the early months were absolutely botched for our three-dimensional friend here. First off was that North American price tag, $249.99, which is quite steep for what many considered a secondary video game console. To put that into perspective, the original DS first sold for $149.99 in North America and would drop to $129.99 by the summer of 2005. Now yes, the 3DS had a lot more packed into it than a DS, but that wasn't really convincing people to pick this up for $250. So early on, the 3DS really struggled to get its foot in the door. And those launch titles are not doing it any favors. Yuck. This is the absolute epitome of quantity over quality. Like, goddamn Nintendo, you made Pilotwings Resort. Go back to making colored TV games, because Pilotwings clearly is not working out. We've got The Sims 3, but now downscaled to oblivion, and I can guarantee you, you're not gonna feel like the real Ridge Racer with Ridge Racer 3D, and fucking Pez. I feel like Nintendo thought the big system sellers at launch were going to be stuff like Rayman 3D, which is just a port of Rayman 2. Nintendogs, a titan on the DS that failed to leave an impact on successor. Super Monkey Ball 3D, guess what? It's Super Monkey Ball, but 3D, even though the original Super Monkey Ball is already 3D. This name is stupid! And, Madden Football. No. So, one overpriced handheld and a botched launch later, and we've got a recipe for absolute disaster. I guess Nintendo's finally gonna lose in the handheld business to that soon-to-be-released PS Vita, because you can't have a worse launch than this. And that's kinda where the console stood for the first few months of life. A system in absolute limbo, which needed to be helped out fast. Now, by this point, Nintendo was in quite the bind. The Wii was on its way out, and Nintendo had its sights full on the success of the Nintendo Wii U, a console that also shared a name with the previous system. Nintendo really had attachment issues with this generation. So to save the 3DS, the first thing Nintendo did was in the summer of 2011, the 3DS was officially price cut, from $250 to a bit more reasonable $170. Now, Nintendo felt a little bad about pretty much scamming people out of $80, so that's where we would get the Nintendo 3DS Ambassador Program. Yay. For being an ambassador, you get the basic bitch set of NES games that can give you fun for about 25 and maybe even 30 minutes. Hey guys, it's your favorite indie developer, Nintendo, and we're just here to say thank you for spending $250 on the Nintendo 3DS. And a special deal just for you, Yoshi. Fuck you. Now, Nintendo did also give you some actual fun video games as well from the Game Boy Advance library, such as Metroid Fusion, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, WarioWare, and Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones. But this right here would cause the biggest controversy about the 3DS, something that would affect the console for its entire lifespan: the purchase of GBA games. Now, another big feature with the 3DS was its inclusion of digitally buying games online, the Nintendo eShop as it would be called. This was a spiritual successor to the Wii Shop channel on the Wii, where you could buy games both old and new all in one place. The Virtual Console was the name given to all the legacy titles released on the eShop, rather that be the first-party games, third-party games, the TurboGrafx-16 if you're feeling like murdering somebody. But one thing the 3DS never got through its entire life was Game Boy Advance games. We would never see any first-party GBA titles on the Nintendo 3DS eShop. They were completely exclusive to this Ambassador program, which is stupid. It's not like Nintendo were still profiting off of the GBA anyway, and during the lifespan of the 3DS, there was a huge wave of GBA nostalgia. It would have been perfect for Nintendo to throw these onto the system. But now it's just another stupid decision made by our good friends at Nintendo. Right there next to Tokyo Mirage Sessions and them leaving behind the Love Tester business. But with our talk about the 3DS eShop, was there anything on here that was worth buying? Well, early on the eShop was full of pretty simple titles, not much of note from this year. Some stuff include Mighty Switch Force, which was pretty fun, Freaky Forms, which in fact did survive the eShop purge of 2023 by getting a physical release. But there was one game that came out on the eShop in 2011 that I would go as far as to consider an unofficial mascot of the 3DS eShop, other than that shopping bag guy. And that was a little game called Pushmo. This game really was a fun time, and I'd go as far as to consider it one of the 3DS greats. A simple game to understand, but can get quite difficult later on. So good job, Intelligent Systems. Oh yes, Intelligent Systems. You should remember that name, because throughout the life of the 3DS, these guys are going to absolutely carry this system. But let's spin right over to some of the big, heavy-hitting 3DS titles from 2011. Mario Kart 7 continues the trend of taking a DS game and not making it as good. Look, Mario Kart 7, it has its moments. Woohoo Island course, that's great. Rainbow Road, I'm gonna be honest, I still don't get the hype with this one, but to each their own. The game has one of the worst selections of characters in the series. Like, I'm happy to see my favorite game of all time having a rep in Mario Kart, but Honey Queen is stupid. Just as stupid as Metal Mario. Waluigi could have taken up both of these slots, and I would have been happier. Out of all the Mario Kart games after Mario Kart 64, this one is down there with Super Circuit. I am sorry. Another big thing we got throughout the year was Nintendo telling 3DS owners, yes, we can run Nintendo 64 games. Sure, we destroyed Mario 64 on the DS, but with this system, you can play Ocarina of Time. In all fairness, these N64 games are actually pretty good. Ocarina of Time is incredibly well made, and Star Fox 64 3D ain't too bad either. But come on, what's the big game of the year for the 3DS? Something new. A game made specifically with the 3DS hardware in mind. Here we go! Super Mario 3D Land was that big title, and was released right before the 2011 holiday season. Now, I didn't get to play this game until years after release, but 3D Land was a pretty fun time. This was the game that proved to a lot of people that the 3DS can truly handle three-dimensional graphics and still be a fun game. It's not a long game by any means, and has little replay value in my opinion, but I had fun with it. It was a little Mario 3D adventure. There's not much to complain about here. It's a solid game if you want to waste an afternoon doing something. And so that was the 3DS in 2011, but wait a minute. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting here. Oh yeah! Face Raiders! So this was a cute yet incredibly terrifying little game that came with all 3DS systems where you can take a picture of your face and then blow it up. If Nintendo did more marketing focused on this game, then that $250 price tag would be completely justified. But alas, it is time to talk about this slider right here. And the major reason I kept myself from talking about it all this time is because it really doesn't matter. The 3D slider throws you into the world of the game you're playing at the sacrifice of your vision. Now, in terms of visual discomfort, it's not the worst thing Nintendo's ever done, just almost. This was such a big piece of the early 3DS marketing, and it really amounted to sweet nothing. It's just there as a way to drive up the price of the 3DS. It's only tacked on there because the early 2010s were a big time for 3D movies and 3D stuff, just like how the tablets were the big craze when the Wii U came out. There is never a reason you need to have the 3D slider on, and I'm sure 90% of people open their 3DS for the first time, hit that 3D slider, saw the visual garbo before them, and never used it again. This was one of the biggest gimmicks in gaming history, more so than others like motion controls, because at least on consoles like the Wii, the motion felt decent in games like Super Mario Galaxy and Wii Sports Resort. In conclusion, holy shit, the first year the 3DS on the market was ass, with Nintendo fumbling to get this thing in the consumer's hands, and no real games for the 3DS to call its own. So, in conclusion, the 3DS launch was tart, and it failed to pick up a big audience of people early on. But what can we learn from this? Well, 1, don't gatekeep Game Boy Advance games, and 2, why would you release this fucking sin of a game on to mankind?